Welcome to the End Time Prophecies podcast. Thanks for tuning in. We will be discussing the warning signs upon us.
Are you serious? From somewhere, from an undisclosed location on this planet, it's Mike from around the world. Mike, how you doing tonight?
God bless you, Pastor Paul. I'm doing great.
Great. You sound good. Coming in wall to wall and treetop tall, they like to say. So,
All right.
All right, Mike. So how's your week been?
Challenging.
Wow. I could hear the
Very
exhaustion. Yeah. I mean, wow. Challenging. Well, let me ask you. Let me read a tweet. Can I read a tweet from Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth?
Sure.
Message to Iran. We see your lethal support to the Houthis. We know exactly what you're doing. We know very well what the U.S. military is capable of. Oh, no, he said, you know very well what the U.S. military is capable of. And you are warned. You will pay the consequence at the time and place of our choosing.
Well, they're on notice.
Is certainly on notice, and I guess I got to ask you, because that explosion that was in Iran on that harbor, a lot of people are saying that was. I mean, it killed like 50 people or so and wounded over 1,200. And they're saying it was missile fuel in there. And then, of course, next thing we know, Jerusalem, fires burning all around Jerusalem. And I don't know if that was retaliation. So what's your thoughts on this, Mike, where we're at with this?
Well, the Middle East is it's a type of reface happening. Of course, Iran is always, they've always been a type of thorn. But this time, the USA is taking steps, taking real steps to, in coordination with Israel, to do what they have to do, because this time in the Middle East, it counts. Keep in mind, the entire world right now, the people of the world, a lot of them, not all, but a lot, have issues with the politics, global politics that are happening right now. So people are prone to do some very drastic things. Iran is normally a recruiter of such people. They will utilize them, all across the earth to do things, kind of like the fires in New Jersey, the fires in Israel.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
The power outage, things of that nature.
Yeah.
We're gonna see much more of those types of activities, right? These low grade but effective terroristic activities we're gonna see.
So you feel that the Portugal, Spain, part of France, that power outage, was that terrorism?
Well, yeah, the power system, right? All that power goes through France.
Yes.
And I know for a fact they have a low power condition in the power plant. Well, that they'll always say there's no sign of terrorism. That's a natural response they're going to give until
Right.
they get a handle on things. But
Right.
all you have to, it doesn't take a lot to cause a low power condition. So when you have that low power condition, some of your mains will start tripping. Safety circuits in the network will trip, shutting down power to reserve, pump power, for the water, for the cooling systems, transfer systems, and critical systems. And so all that took place, and it took a while to reboot the system without losing some of the major components. Right? That can happen anywhere. And it probably will happen in quite a few places. I know in the USA, we're about to have this weather. I know it's bad. It's about to get worse in two ways. One by way of heat, another by way of wind and wind damage. That's going to be a big deal. Power grids, all electric companies in the USA they have memos, and they're on notice to respond by cutting power quickly to certain areas throughout the USA to save the grid, right?
Yeah.
They spent the last 2.5 years upgrading the power system in the USA for the weather, just for the weather, right?
Yeah.
It's going to be bad. It's going to be bad.
Well, I mean, this you talk about weather. I mean, we had some unbelievable wind over in the Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania area.
Yeah. Yep.
Straight line winds, like you've been talking
Yep.
about, unbelievable. And Pennsylvania, you got mountains and stuff. It's not a place where I would think there would be that kind of wind.
Yeah. We're going to have much more of that, Pastor Paul. It's unfortunate, but we're in that time. We're really in the time of the end. We are. Things are wrapping up. Things are, increasing. Things are progressively becoming unsafe. And it's almost like a conflagration of events are taking place all at one time. It'll be overwhelming, consistent. It's really going to put us in a different position, a very different position. I'm hoping that people are truly prepared for this, because I know the strain and the stress of not, of not having a lot of hope in that common way that we've been used to living. It will change. President Trump has been trying to tell people that. Now, I will say this. I don't take sides, but President Trump has been trying to warn people. This goes beyond tariffs. If President Trump did not impose tariffs, he would have to warn the people about the exact same thing, about, the products not being here.
Right. You've been saying that before there was ever tariffs mentioned.
Yeah. So people they're going to have their some finances, but they won't have a selection of things to choose from.
Yeah.
And so that's going to cause these supply trains, to start traveling all over the USA.
What? Wait a minute. Are you talking about the white train?
Yeah. If take notice that even your fast food restaurants, they're not utilizing normal ingredients. They're not doing it.
What are they doing? What are they doing?
They're using, I hate to say it, but kind of like low grade ingredients. They're not the same. No doubt people have noticed the taste of all this fast food and restaurant food and everything else has been changed, right? So it does not, the tariffs, they're one thing, right? And people are going to notice that even with the tariffs, all that's going to balance out fairly quickly.
Plastic.
It's going to cause some issues here and there, but it will balance out. The problem is, and this is where it does not matter who's in power. They would have had the same message.
I see.
Right?
Yeah.
And they would have had to, they would have had to warn the people, because we're dealing with atmospheric phenomena. It's got to be unrivaled. It's got to be undeniable. Right now, your average person, sure, they could deny it and say, well, it's, part of trending. We're getting used to it, this, that, and the other. It's going to go over expectations here fairly quickly. They're going to have to come up with 3 brand new names for storms. In Pennsylvania, they called that an inland hurricane or something to that nature, because of the winds.
Yeah.
Inland hurricane. Yeah. Some sort of new type hurricane. They're trying to give it a name to describe that phenomenon, because it will keep coming. And that, in fact, will be the average thunderstorm with 100-mile-an-hour winds plus, right?
Are they
not good?
And so this weather is going to affect crops. So and if you affect crops, you're going to affect ingredients. Are they putting? I've seen people in the chat room here say plastic or petroleum.
Yeah, plastic is in foods, and first of all, quality control is not that good in these factories.
Okay,
right? People are finding things in their food, metal in their food, shavings and things like that in their food. Some of the vegetables that are coming out, many people are taking notice of. These animals won't even touch the fruit or the vegetables. They won't. You can take, for example, you can take strawberries from Walmart, throw them out in your yard. They're going to be there a week. Nothing will touch them.
What?
Nothing. Not even the bugs.
Wait.
Yeah.
Well, now this is true. You can take food or something like that, and just. We got a little dog, little Bobo, right? Little Bo. And you can just kind of put it up and see if they'll turn their nose and go the other way. Now that's not. I'm not talking about dog food. I don't give the dog any human food, but I just sometimes do it just to see if they would eat it. And sometimes they get crazy and they want, and sometimes they turn. This dog just turns its nose and goes the other way. Yeah. If a dog won't eat something, is that a sign?
Yeah, something's wrong. Something's wrong. Yeah, because dogs don't have that many taste buds, right? So what smells nasty to us can smell good to them. And birds have even less, and they won't touch it, right? Birds won't touch it.
So you're saying they could take strawberries and throw it out in the yard, and for a week, and ants won't get on it. Nobody wants, and it won't decay either.
Correct.
Well, what's in that?
That's right.
Well,
Pastor Wade, the rains that we have are full of toxins. Think about it. We've not, they've been chemtrailing for a long time.
Yeah.
They admitted to it. They've been doing that for a long time.
Yeah. They've finally.
It's in the atmosphere. It's in the atmosphere. It's in the oceans. It's in the soil.
Yeah.
Something is wrong with the soil. And I hate to say it, even if you have a garden by yourself, right? You have to, there are some enclosed systems that will not allow natural rain to hit the gardens, because they know if they do, there are GMO critters in the rain, right? So if you have a garden out there, it's still going to be exposed to some of this GMO stuff.
I know,
right?
I know. Too much spraying. But now the United States finally it's no longer a conspiracy theory. Now they're admitting it was been spraying. But the UK is turning it up even more. They say they gotta dim the sun. They gotta save us by dimming the sun.
Well, that was the first in 1942, right? Chemtrailing. I know people have their theories and everything else. I don't know everybody's theory.
Okay.
I do know what's in the some of the military colleges. I'll say
documentation. Okay.
Army War College and things like that. When you go reading documentation and files and blah 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 and get briefed. Anyway. In 1942, they came up with an operation to hide ships in the ocean, right?
Yeah.
But it quickly evolved. They said, hey, we can spray this in the atmosphere. And because of the sun, now remember back in 1942 to 47, that's when they really began to look at atmospheric phenomena, right? That's when the radar was coming out. And with the radar, they learned quite a few things. As they perfected the radar, they learned quite a bit. Well, all that data put together, they saw that the Earth was vulnerable. And it was heating up far too fast. So in truth, they have been cooling this planet since 1940, I believe it's 1944. Think about that. They've been cooling it. Had they not reflected a lot of the sun rays, it would be twice as hot on the Earth right now.
So even though the Earth is heating up, it could have been a lot worse. But they've been dampering it down.
Yes. They already knew the consequences with the chemicals that were being sprayed, what it would cause within civilians, the medical costs, and they knew all that. And they did that anyway. They saw it as a necessary step for the entire Earth. Just think about that for a minute. That means they actually have knowledge that a process began back in the 40s that they've been trying to stave off.
Was that the Philadelphia project or the Manhattan? What was that?
No, not that. That was somewhat separate, right?
Okay.
Well, that was somewhat separate, but the chemtrailing is not solely to reflect sunlight. It's also for planetary monitoring, right?
What do you mean?
When the radar came out, they found out they needed some type of surveillance system, right? Okay. So they also found out that by spraying in the atmosphere, anything that reflects sunlight can also reflect infrared back to the planet. Right, that means you can actually send out a infrared beam to the planet and pick it back up with HARP.
Okay.
Yeah.
HARP.
And that data was then compiled and put into what's called a real-time computer.
Okay.
So they had a live map so to speak,
I see.
of everything on the surface of the earth for surveillance. They know a lot more. Now, this is not, this is not theory, by the way. This is not theory. This is kind of absolute.
Fact.
They were doing this, and they do this, right? Of course, every government project has multiple purposes, right? We know that. And just like every facility has multiple purposes. Yeah, but they were doing that. That means we have been in trouble since the 40s. We've been in trouble.
So this artificial attempt to cool the earth as the sun continues to heat up. The Bible told us that if finally men will be scorched and they will gnaw their tongues for pain. You remember when you talked about there would be a lot of storms, and then we would go through a period where after all these storms, there would be a dry period on
Yes.
the earth. Can you talk about that some? Because that's
Sure. Right now, the oceans are changing, right? The chemical composition of the oceans are changing. The atmosphere is changing. All of these effects are driving these events, these evaporation events in the atmosphere. We have new ice melting. That's changing the chemical composition of the water also.
okay.
It's causing a lot of a strange type of oxygen release in the oceans. The ice, by the way, helps the ocean currents. It keeps them going. But more than that, it keeps nutrients in the oceans circulating, right? There's been some interruptions to the nutrient system of the ocean itself, and so sea life is suffering. There's a lot of sea life right now that is poisoned with red algae poisoning, right? They're doing their best not to speak about too much of this, but to do everything they can to offset that somehow.
Wow.
They're doing deep sea dives to try and find out if they can bring to the surface a type of oxygen that is simply not on the surface. They believe that will help exacerbate some of the effects of this ice melt, but it's too late. Melting ice, if you had a glass of ice, the cubes can stand the water for some time. But have you noticed that right at the end, that glass of water with the ice in it hits a stage where everything melts almost at one time, right?
Yeah.
So it'll stay for a long time, but then all of a sudden, all at one time, all the ice starts melting fast. That's what we're going through now.
Okay, so that's why
huge ice melts.
I see.
And it's causing the water evaporation event to increase. Now that increases how much water is in the atmosphere. So it's driving storms, literally driving storms, right? With all these heavy rains and everything else, but it's also doing something else. It's causing a replacement of salt and fresh water. Now that salt and fresh water, once it hits a specific stage, there's going to be more evaporation event, because salt water is heavy, right? Very heavy.
Mm-hmm.
And once it reaches a certain chemical balance, I'll say, we're not going to have any cloud formations, and we're going to regret that.
Then it's going to quit raining. Then it will quit raining.
That's right. We'll probably go through, we may not last that long, but we'll likely go through 20 plus years without rain.
Globally, or just or
globally.
spots?
No, it's globally. That's globally. But not only that do we have to face that, but we have celestial events, and we also have to face. Right. So let me drop this small bomb. It's going to become a real, thing. There's something everybody knows about. Everybody, they experience this once a year, or twice a year, 3 times a year. They're called meteor showers, like the, meteor shower and all these things.
Yeah.
What people may not know is that they know that 13,000 years ago, 10 to 13,000 years ago, the killer asteroids that were responsible for causing death and all these fires and loss of civilization came from those meteor showers.
Okay.
Okay, now listen, that means there's a band of meteors that the Earth passes through. And over a long duration of time, we get back into the meaty portions of that band. Guess what?
What?
We're back into the meteor portions of those bands, which means there are objects in this band that are 20 miles wide.
What?
Yeah, that's pretty dangerous. They also know for a fact.
If that was to be a direct hit, that's that's almost like an
Well,
extinction.
there's a lot of them. There's a bunch. They've had everybody, and the only reason I'm talking about this now is because they declassified a lot of this information. They didn't give to everybody. You have to go in there and dig it up and find it, but it is declassified. The Tunguska blast. They know that was from one of those, meteor shower. And we're going to have some aerial bursts. And as of late, we've been having more and more aerial bursts, right? Now, how do they know this? From nanodiamonds. Anytime an object from space penetrates our atmosphere and explodes, it causes nanodiamonds, tiny little diamond round balls to form all over the Earth. And they found 5 or 6 layers of this. Now, looking at rock composition, they know exactly what meteor shower it came from.
Okay.
Right, they know. And so we've had the danger all this time. We've had the killer asteroids up there all this time. It's like playing Russian roulette every single year, and it's coming around again. So those common meteor showers were Earth killers, essentially. Right? They were responsible for this stuff, and of course, you had some more, but these were some of the major ones. So you're looking at I believe it's like every 500-600 years, something has happened on the Earth because of those meteor showers that plunged the Earth in darkness. Not for a few nights either. We're talking a few years, right?
That's crazy.
They have the evidence. They know about the evidence that all that has been declassified. And so it will be published. And when people find that they're going to, I'll tell you right now, I guarantee you right now, they're writing, they're going to have publications. They're going to have certain papers that explain this in a very friendly way to have people say, oh, it's no big deal. Of course it's a big deal because we're coming back around to the meaty sections of these meteor showers. All you have to do, Pastor Paul, is get a graphic. They're out there somewhere. They have to be. Get a graphic of how we pass through these common meteor showers. And you'll see the orbit of the Earth passes right through these rings from these meteor showers. And the meteor shower, we went through a very empty spot for some time, but we're getting back into the chunky section of these meteor showers now, right?
Yes. We got
That's going to be a real issue.
Mike,
yes, sir.
Is that rockets coming into Israel right now? Okay, so there's a couple things that have happened. Israel, just a moment, not long ago, has bombed near the presidential palace in Damascus. A prime minister and the defense minister announces Israel has just struck a target very close to the presidential palace in Damascus. And the quote is, "We will not permit any threats to the Druze community." Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Defense Minister Israel Katz announced early Friday morning that Israel had struck a target close to the presidential palace in Damascus. This is a clear message to the Syrian regime. We will not permit Syrian troops to move south of Damascus or any threat to the Druze community. Now, Heidi's just walked in with her phone. It's showing, there's a ton of rocket reports coming into Israel now. I don't know where they're fired from. It's in the upper Galilee area, which would make me think it could be coming out of Syria. Could be coming out of Lebanon. Here, you do that. We're going to show you the map here. Now, I don't know if this means this is how many rockets are flying in, but it could be how many reports of rockets. That's a lot. Okay, so here is Israel. Let's see if I can tip that just right. Because you got a camera on it. It don't like to show that. Anyway, it's a nation of Israel. You can see the Mediterranean there, and then all of the reports of rockets coming in. I don't know how many, but obviously, Mike. Okay, I was going to get to the Assyrian guy and the other guy, the Mahdi guy, thinks he's the Mahdi. But let's go with the Assyrian guy. This guy who's taken over, Ahmed al-Shirari. He said he wanted to do peace, wanted to maybe make peace with Israel and the Abraham Accords. But there's been reports of slaughtering of Christians and Druze in Syria. We know Israel has just hit near that presidential palace, and they're even saying it was near the presidential palace, sending a clear message to him. Mike, what's going on?
Well, this guy is the same guy, right, who designed slaughtering techniques or techniques of torture for communities to suppress them and then to smile to the world, right? So he is, think of a person who has no conscience, none, zero. Okay. There you are, right? So and what I mean is a guy who can murder one person and go to lunch and talk about peace very effectively, and go back and murder somebody else.
It's a psychopath. It's almost like a psychopath.
Yeah, I'd say this guy is worse because he is disconnected somehow, right? He's actually a very dangerous person. I'm surprised that somebody from his own camp has not taken him out. I suspect that will probably happen.
Now, what's that, Heidi? They're mostly in the north. Yeah, it's all over the. There's Galilee. It's up near It's between. It's over near Nazareth. That a lot of.
Take note what Benjamin Netanyahu said, right? Take note what he said. He was not going to have that,
he said he's not going to have that, and he just said it here. And this statement was just released an hour ago.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to permit it, and you better not move your Syrian troops to the south of Damascus or any threat to the Druze community. So this is a point blank message.
You see what's happening though? There's a sobering view of the Middle East right now. It's like a train coming, and nobody can stop it. You have a government who is doing the right thing for the nation of Israel. You have a supporting country that will now support Israel, right? But you have the rest of the world who most certainly does not agree with Israel, nor its ally,
right?
The USA,
the United States, right?
Now, slowly but surely, they have already gone outside of the USA, the international community, to plan their next moves. And I still have to stand by my statement. They will disarm Israel. They are going to disarm Israel. They're going to do it by force. It's not going to be pretty. But Benjamin Netanyahu he's not going to relent. They already know this. He will not relent. And so we know what that means too. We know what that means. Evil folks that they're planning, Pastor Paul. And all I can say is they're planning. It's not like they've not gone silent. They're quite noisy. And they do want Benjamin Netanyahu out of the way, and they want somebody else out of the way.
Trump. They want Trump out of the way too.
I hate to say this though.
Yeah.
The numbers are staggering. The coordination is absolute. And there's going to be that confrontation that this world is going to have to face. We don't know what year, we don't know when. But I will say this. Evil it never gives up. If evil gave up, if evil didn't know how to win, all of us, paradise would be right here on this earth right now.
Right.
But it's not that way. Plus, biblical prophecy, it already tells us that wars and desolations are decreed unto the end, and that these people are not going to give up going against Israel, specifically the Jews. They don't like Jews. They will come up with every excuse you can imaginable against the Jews. And now we have South America beginning to coordinate with both China and the Middle Eastern factions against the USA in several ways.
Yeah.
This summer, I'll tell you something, this summer is like a corridor, right? It's like a corridor. We're going through that corridor. And in the fall, if we make it that far, I believe one of the greatest conflicts we could ever know will have broken out in the fall.
So you're anticipating, and I mean, we still got the war going on with Russia and Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, now this deal was signed. Is this going to help or hurt? I mean, is this going to help this war?
That's just I think any deal signed right now, I hate to be the bad voice in this, but any deal signed right now is only going to buy the time of those folks who will continue along their same lines. I think it's good for everybody to remember that Putin is actually communist.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. He's KGB communist.
He's communist,
all the way, yeah.
and he made that statement not more than 4 or 5 days ago that his heart and soul is communist. And people who are Christians, they may not know, Pastor Paul, what communism actually is.
Right. I know.
They may not know that because you cannot be a communist and a Christian at the same time. That's not going to work. It's just not going to work. And so Putin he's biding his time. He's a guy in power. Trust me, he's going to build up his forces. He's already put a mandate on these top-notch laser systems that he has devoted a lot of resources to developing. Right? He's in fact, he's playing chess, and he has everybody looking at his pawns while he is building up his forces on other levels. He's doing this in combination with Iran. He's doing, and this is where our leaders have to be extremely cautious, because Pastor Paul will tell you they will play on anybody's ego or anything else they seem to exhibit, and so the USA has to be extremely careful in this stage.
So this fall, you're talking about this fall. Now, usually in the fall, we have the big UN meetings. And so are you anticipating the Middle East coming to a head by the fall? Is that?
Yeah, and I think that will begin with
Macron?
The Baltic states.
The Baltic. Okay, let's go there.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Because we have there's too much tension. It's not going to be settled. And for example, China has doubled its development of its military assets. Doubled. Okay, doubled. And since President Trump has been elected, South America, right? Kim Jong-un, all those guys have thrown everything into one hat to develop their militaries and to practice coordinated tactics all over the earth, non-stop. So they've been training hard all this time. I mean, very hard. So while the USA has been engaged in arguments, I guess you could say.
Folks, again, we got breaking news, and that is that President Ahmed al-Sharara launched a wave of intense testing against Israel in northern Israel with the Syrian community who say they want to go and they want to go help their families who are Druze who live in Syria. Yeah. Meanwhile, Netanyahu has bombed locations very close to the palace in Damascus, sending a clear message to Ahmed al-Sharara. We've been studying this on prophecy because, you got the Assyrian in the Bible. It talks about an Assyrian who actually puts the rod on Israel. It's temporary. God says, don't fear him,
Yeah.
And then, Mike, while this is all going on, we got this guy. I mean, this guy showed up on the scene who says he's the Mahdi.
Oh, Lord.
Do you?
I know you're talking about. This Sadiq dude.
Yeah, Abdullah.
Let me.
Hamad or
Yeah.
Abdullah Hashem. Yeah, Abdullah.
Yeah.
What
Well,
about
first
this
of all, right, it's even worse. I know a guy looks just like him.
You know a guy?
Looks just like that guy.
Okay.
And but that guy right there, right?
Yeah.
This guy's he messed up already. Or concerning him being the Mahdi or him being some major anti-holy figure, he didn't even qualify for that because he thinks the Holy Ghost walked around on the earth.
Yeah, he said that. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
He thinks that somehow there was some succession of Jesus to everybody else. He's claiming his papacy role, right?
Yes.
Due to a succession of something that never existed that way. He didn't understand Christianity at its core. So this guy just flat out disqualified himself. And his merry band of his crowd,
right?
They were chanting at a falsehood with mispronounced Arabic. How does that happen?
Well,
because somebody mentions this guy, and you kind of watch him. I sat and I listened to this guy. Now, first of all, when I was looking at him, I saw light reflecting in his face, which means he was reading from a teleprompter.
Yes, he was. Because he was.
You cannot be right. You can't be the Mahdi. And then I zoomed in, looked at his eyes, and I saw the teleprompter. I said, "This guy. What is this guy? This guy's trying to make money."
Yes, that's all he's doing.
He's making money
and deceiving people
because these people have sold. They've given him a lot of assets. They've given him everything. So this guy is just getting for everything they have. If the real Mahdi came on the scene, he'd smack that guy in the head or something.
Yeah.
This guy's he's just.
Plus, did you hear the chant when the people chanted?
Yeah.
They chanted so perfect. And Israel Hall said to me, he said, "I'm telling you," he said, "I know music, I know audio." He said, "I know audio."
Yeah.
He said, "That was
engineered sound. Yeah.
Because there was never a 2 or 3 stragglers. It was always boom, boom.
Correct.
A crowd doesn't do that. They're not that perfect.
Correct. Right. But you know what? We're gonna have this guy. I would say this guy is at the low end of things. But Pastor Paul, there are folks out there, right?
Yeah.
That are
the real deal.
They're doing things.
Yeah.
I mean, they're doing things in front of people. When somebody does something that is undeniable in front of someone and they stay humble about it, and they're not full of the vibrato this guy has and everything else.
Right.
Okay, that's a different type of thing. In South America, there's somebody there who stepped into Arizona, right? They're listening to this guy in Arizona. He did this in Arizona. He did this in Mexico. He did this in somewhere else. But this guy's causing water to come up from places no water can come up from.
Wait a minute. With his hand or with
yes.
speak?
Whoa. No. He'll touch it. He just touches it.
And water
he'll sit there and touch it, and water starts flowing, right, for the people to get a drink or whatever. And then it just stops, and people go back after him, digging up the place, and there's nothing there. So there are actors on this earth. There are people on this earth that are starting to rise, that are the real deal. Right?
So he can do miracles. So he can do signs.
Yes.
Where's he from? What's he? Is he South American?
Yes. This guy is South American.
South American.
And he's not claiming to be anybody. See, the part that got me was he's not claiming to be anybody. He's not. And do you know this guy was looked in on by agencies. When somebody real like that comes on the scene, agencies will follow anybody who is consistently real. Right. That's
Right.
why if anybody out there has a gift, I'll just say this is my opinion. If you have a real gift, don't ever exercise the fullness of that gift on the internet. Don't do it. Don't do it because your life is just not going to be a good one after that. Don't do it. Don't do it. Take a guess on certain things, do what you have to do, but do not do that because they will follow you. And if you stay consistent like that, they will eventually take you, essentially.
In other words,
They will take you.
if they can't control the narrative and prop up their prophet or their Messiah or their Mahdi or the Antichrist, if somebody else is starting to try, and actually they'll shut them down. If they're not in control, they have to be in control. Is that's part of this beast kingdom, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, they are in control. You know, Pascal, if I were to say something, it's like on the internet, everybody on the internet wants to hear the big secret or something like that. I'll tell you something.
Right.
If I were to utter something that was a no-no to say, before it would travel through my microphone and it would hit them this within microseconds, and that would be it for me. And that'd be it. It would never reach you. You may hear something totally different. That means they have an ability, and they've had this ability since the 90s to finish a conversation for someone.
That's why.
So they can, because a lot of people look for these big secrets.
Right.
They can shut a person down. You have to think about something. Every single communication is going through a hub. That hub is controlled. That hub is going through agencies of government so deep that they don't even have a designation, and they can shut people down, come and get them. They operate with impunity. So there are certain lines.
Can they zap you? I mean, I've seen them. I remember seeing John McCain one time. Just this is not the same exact thing, but I saw it happen to Petraeus. I saw it happen to John McCain where they asked a question, and when they went to answer it, they couldn't speak, and they kind of like almost fainted.
There's a technique called cerebral stimulation, external cerebral stimulation by sound. It is highly effective. If they wanted to disperse a crowd, they can have everybody go into a seizure all at one time. They can actually tune frequencies coming out of certain pieces of metal, tune it to whatever organ they want to, and disrupt the function of that specific organ. So they have this capability. And it is my firm belief that Pascal, they have things that they could do damage with in a heartbeat, and nobody would ever find out. So it is only by God's grace and his mercy that we're kept. Nobody can tell me it's any other way. Nobody can tell me that, because I know what's out there, and I know what they can do, and they have not done it. If they wanted to take out everybody on the planet, right, they could do it. They could do it in a heartbeat, and nobody could stop them.
So this Havana Syndrome that was happening to our diplomats in Havana, Cuba, was that just kind of a test run to see what they could do?
I think it was. Here's what I believe. Mm-hmm. There was a group. Right, there was a small group, and it was it was a team that was deployed. I think this team operated the way they should not have. That's what I think happened, and it got out to everybody else. That was harassment. Is what that was.
Yeah, that was harassment.
That was harassment. Because you can take your microwave at home and do the same thing to somebody else. You have something in there called a magnetron, which in truth is nobody should really have a magnetron. Everybody has one, right? But it's a component that is capable of a whole lot.
So in other words, they can take that. The microwave has a magnetron in it in a small condensed area there. But you're saying that could be weaponized, that could be reconstructed.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? Not even I'm telling you right now, you can take anybody's microwave and turn that into a weapon in less than 10 seconds.
That's wild.
Because here's what a microwave does. It essentially sends out this wave, right?
Okay.
This wave, and then that wave is doubled, is what happens, because it sends out these pulses, this sine wave, almost like a perfect sine wave, so fast that it breaks up the molecules of the wave before it, right? That heats up water molecules. That's what it does. It heats up water molecules.
Yeah.
But it has an ability to break the molecules that were sent out before it. Now, if you do that and point it in one direction for a period of time, you're going to cause a disruption of everything in in that straight line for a specific distance. It can go right through everything.
Yeah.
It's going to go right through everything, and it's not going to be stopped. So that's why China uses that on their aircraft. China has microwave shields and close microwave weapons against other fighters, which is why our fighters, we don't want to get close to them.
Right.
You don't want to get close to a Chinese aircraft like that. You don't just knock them out of the air. You don't want to get close. So, with things like that, and you have people that know how to use them, that's part of the danger, is that you don't have to go and pick up anything special to do that, to fry somebody's brain. You don't have to. You just go pick up a microwave and do a little something to it, plug it up, and let it go to town, and it will have that same effect upon a person. Imagine heating up the water molecules in somebody's brain.
Oh, no.
Right? Now, you can't tell. There's no way anybody's going to be able to tell that somebody heated up their water molecules in the brain. That they're going to call it a syndrome, right?
Exactly.
They can target certain points of the head by way of frequency, because you have a density change going all throughout your skull. All these different things. So there are things out there, yes, they can use without detection, and that's that.
All right.
Are you kidding? Look how late it is. How'd that happen?
I don't know, but I got to ask you, the Vatican. We got to look. The conclave is ready to start. There's about 4 or 5 guys that are kind of rising to the top right now. Do you got any input or any inside info on what's going to happen in Rome?
I heard a phrase. That it implied that the walk begins during the process. The walk begins. It's almost like somebody is saying that we have now come into a time where this Pope, even the election or the selection of this Pope, is part of a march into unknown territory.
Is that because because it's going to be affect other governments? Is there a broad?
Oh, it'll affect everybody. The Pope just passed away, and look at the Middle East, and it's going to get worse tomorrow. It's almost like there's no unified decision making in part of the spirit realm for these guys.
So you're saying because the Pope is dead and don't have a Pope, that the Middle East is going to get worse?
Yeah, I suspect it will get a lot worse, because the Pope, despite what people think about him, right, he has a job to regulate the world in very specific ways, and when the Vatican does not regulate these areas of operation, it can quickly spiral out of control.
They run wild. Then there's the constraints been removed. So
they do. For some reason, they listen to the Pope. They do.
Yeah.
It's a big deal to a lot of people. I had Pastor Paul was in the Middle East one time, and they heard that the Pope was coming on the scene, and Muslims started crying.
Oh, I know. There's
it's that type of
yeah,
thing.
You're right. There's great respect for the Pope among the Islamic world. I realize that. So right now there's no spiritual head there at this moment. So they and they're looking for their Mahdi. They really are, and whether they're Sunni or Shia, and they got different ideals on how the Mahdi arrives.
That brings up this point. One point.
Okay.
I believe the Vatican's next role is to broker peace between the Islamic factions.
Between the Shia and the Sunnis?
There's whoever that's going to be, Pastor Paul, there's going to be a rumble in the Islamic world, right? They're with every single religion, there's always that time when there's the internal fight. And whoever is the victor of that fight, then they go forward with whatever they go forward with. But it's almost like nothing goes forward until they have that fight. That fight is about to break out. And look at Saudi Arabia.
Yep.
They're playing the harlot big time in a very, in my opinion, it's a foolish way. They're going to get totally removed off the face of the earth because their acts are, that's just not going to be good. And the players in the Middle East right now, they want peace, but they're willing to do what's necessary to wipe out anything that disrupts peace. And in the Middle East, the word right now, even amongst all the Abraham Accords and everything else, you have leaders who are saying things about peace, but you have generals who are saying there's going to be no peace.
Yeah, so the
Not
leaders
until
Israel doesn't exist.
That's right.
And that's
right. So see how unsafe that is? You 15 generals of a country, all right, are saying no peace. But then the leaders speaking in front of the television and with presidents is saying peace, and nobody's listening to the guy. Right? Because ultimately in the Islamic kingdom, the military can actually take full command. In fact, it's in their doctrine that will in fact happen.
Well, it has happened in many different countries. They've had dictators rise that take, with Saddam Hussein. I mean, we've seen the guy Muammar Gaddafi. We've seen a lot of that. Okay, and so we're watching it right now in Syria. Right now,
Syria and Pakistan. We have to deal with the nuclear problem. We got a nuclear problem right now.
This Pakistan-India potential.
We've got a nuclear problem right now. Pakistan has already made it clear, and they reiterated that same rhetoric, that if something were to take place where the Middle East would have to go into some type of conflict, they would in fact join the Islamic kingdoms against everything in the West.
Crazy,
right?
Yeah.
They just reiterated that. That was Saturday morning.
I thought they were supposed
like
to be NATO. Whatever happened to that?
Well, even when they were with NATO, they said 10 years ago, if something happens, we're going to support the Islamic kingdom. They told them straight to their faces.
That disqualified them for NATO. If I was,
but they let them in there anyway. And Saudi Arabia said worse. Saudi Arabia.
There's a guy. I've interviewed him several times when I've been to Jerusalem. His name is Avi Lipkin, and Avi is a Jew. He's not a Messianic. Okay, he's an Orthodox Jew, but he believes, and he said this to me several times. Paul, you don't understand. They will blow the black stone up.
Yes, they will.
Saudi Arabia will not control Islam. It will be taken from them. You agreeing with that, aren't you?
Pastor Paul's going to be wiped totally out of the Middle East.
That's going to mess up the
Saudi
whole.
Arabia.
How's the Islamic world going to react to Mecca being blown up? How in the world will they respond?
That will usher in their hadith. Whatever hadith they follow is going to usher in their hadith, the following of the Mahdi.
It's going to be
and then
chaos.
they'll eventually get back to Mecca, but that's what they're going to do. To see things happening now, it's eerie. It's very eerie. Yeah. Plus, here's a big one. You ready for this?
I'm ready.
You do realize that the Islamic kingdom, the Islamic world right now, they're looking for the Messiah, Jesus. You know that, right?
I know.
But they're looking for him for the first time. They have their elders of the Hadith, right? Looking for Christ.
Jesus.
Now, here's something else. You have certain individuals also in and around Israel who are also looking for him.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So we this Boy, we're in a time. It's moving so
No,
quick.
we've never been okay. This is what the Bible said was going to happen, right? In the end times. And
Absolutely.
Jesus said because of that, false Christ and false prophets will rise.
Yep.
Many of
Yep.
them will. All
yeah.
trying to get in position to become the Messiah, the world's
Yep.
Messiah.
Yep.
But Jesus said, believe it not. Don't believe
That's
it.
right.
He's not I'm not in the desert. I'm not over here hiding. I'm not in this.
That's right. That's right.
When I come, every eye is going to behold him. Every knee is going to bow, and every tongue is going to confess that he's the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. But because you're saying this is happening, that means there's going to be turbulence in the spiritual world. And this is going to be the confusion. This is what's going to bring this mass religious fervor of confusion, even among Christians, right? Would you agree?
Yep. Yeah, I believe it's already begun, Pastor Paul, because I believe about 14 years ago, we witnessed the confusion among the Christians when they began to, when one place would attack another and they were all Christian. Do you remember those vicious attacks? And everybody was out, they were headhunting, right?
Yes.
They were doing Satan's job.
Yes.
They said, because Satan is the accuser, right? They were accused. They had nothing but accusations saying that God sent them here to take this person out, take this person out. And nowhere in the Bible do you see that by Christ.
Nope.
But that's their charge that they said they had, right? And because they wanted to exercise that spirit thing within them that caused them to be vicious against everybody else. See, I have no problem telling everybody I'm not the one who's right. Christ is right.
Thank you.
Not me.
Amen.
Christ is right.
Christ is the only one.
But these other folks, they're on a different drinking different Kool-Aid.
Well, we've had our cult leaders and we've had our fake messiahs and we've had our guys that have been running around. But there's going to be some big players coming apparently on the scene that Satan.
You bet.
And they're really going to be good. I mean, they're really going to be deceivers.
You bet.
And like this South American dude, I'm going to be trying to locate what he's about. And because if they can start doing lying signs and wonders, if they can call fire down from heaven, if they can do things that nobody else can,
they're doing it.
Then
they're doing it. They're doing it. It's a couple in Africa too. Same thing. One guy. They don't know. Listen to this. They don't know when he leaves or when he comes.
You mean he can just kind of like disappear and come back and just...
They don't know when he leaves or when he comes. They do not. Nobody has ever witnessed him coming or leaving. Nobody.
Oh, my Lord.
No one.
That's all we need.
No one. So you have things like that happening.
And then when if people start believing that and start following it, then guys like me are saying, don't believe it. Don't believe it. I'm going to be pounding on the gospel and they're going to be...
But you know what I believe?
Yeah.
I believe that because there's one more guy, right? You might be able to find, I think you can find this guy, pastor. He did something with a staff over the water. And all the water, as far as you can see, started to jump. And while this guy was doing this, he was standing, in the water, right? The soles of his feet were in the water. When people walked out there, that water went up to their waist.
So he was defying the law.
This guy defied everything. He defied everything. Now, that's it. Here's the deal. You remember when I told you there are teams in government?
Yes. Oh, you told me.
Search prophecy. And the reason why. You
told me that there's teams that watch me. You're telling me that,
Yeah.
Okay. So
the reason why is because for a long time, the government's highly aware of supernatural things. And when I say supernatural things, I mean supernatural things. Right. There are certain places on the earth right now where stones will never touch the ground. Right? Over a certain area, you take a stone and you roll it in that area, it will not touch the ground. It's going to float right over and go somewhere else. So things like that have been investigated. There are teams that go into certain places, and you cannot be on that team unless you're a devout Christian and believe in Christ.
Right.
In the government, because you will not survive if you don't believe in Christ.
Wow.
You have no defense. There are no-go zones in the world in different countries And no one is permitted in these places, even of the people that live there. You cannot go in. No human being can go into those places.
I've heard
Right.
of that, like in Iraq, like there's a well of Abraham's well or something. I'm trying to remember where.
You got one in Syria. You have one in Turkey. You have
Okay.
one. You have two places in Iran. So you can't go to these places. They know about some details.
Are
about,
they portals? Are they portals of some sort?
No. It's just that they're. If you go into these places, you're not coming back. They're unknown places that look like one thing, right? But that's not what they are. There's certain other places with an influence so strong, right? That there was a place in Russia. There's one place in the USA. Why would you put 400 tons of concrete and try to bury something to
And you
keep the
can't
influence
bury
away
it,
from
and you can't
and
bury
put a
it.
graveyard on top of it, right? And then put a church on top of that?
Because
Well,
you're scared.
what's
Because you're
the deal with
scared.
that?
You're scared to death of whatever's
They're
down there.
and they lost people doing this, right?
Yeah.
They lost people. But there are places like that do exist, and there are people that are just simply vessels of demons, real demons,
I got you.
right? I
agree.
mean, where if a person looks at you, they'll make you shake because everything is wrong, right? You can always tell when
It's demonic.
something
They're
is
possessed
looking
with
at you like that.
serious
They're possessed in
Lucifer.
such a way that their bones contort. I mean, in an instant.
I know.
right?
Yep. I know.
All sorts of weird stuff. But they know those things are coming forward because these special teams were told by these things that they're going to have their time and they're going to come. They even told some of the folks that were on these teams, we're coming to get you when it's our time. You have no defense. You have no defense. And you have folks that have witnessed, when you witness something like that, there's no more playing with the gospel or the Bible or
you better
anything
be
else,
real.
because
You better be real.
there's an appointed time coming, right?
Yep.
And Jesus even said, work while it's day, because when the night comes, no man can work. I mean, that's a heavy statement.
Yeah.
That's a heavy statement. And so we know there's a time of torment coming for those who did not choose Christ, that men will seek death and will not find it.
That's what it says. Amen.
That darkness is going to take over this earth in a way that nobody expected, and there's no defense. There's no military defense against any of that.
And we
stuff.
were told in the Bible that the Antichrist, the false prophet, those that are in this realm will have supernatural demonic power. They really will. They are possessed. They are.
Yes, they will.
They're like Satan is going to use them. Literally physically use them, and he's going to possess them. I mean,
for the first time, I believe I've seen some of that power. In the Bible, when it says that Satan will give this earth element, this earth copy of himself, his power, his seat.
Yeah,
and the Bible says
great authority.
The Bible did not say minimal authority.
No,
it didn't say hogwash. It said great authority. So that means, they're going to be really empowered.
Yes.
Really empowered.
Yes.
And they're going to do some damage.
Yes.
And here's one of my biggest cautions, is that people tend to bow to things that they fear the most, right?
Yep.
Here's my biggest caution. This is part of why I do what I do. Can a person, in the face of death itself, is their faith, and do they have a resolve in their faith strong enough to still yet choose the Lord, even in the face of death or torment or anything else, and say, nope, Jesus is my Lord no matter what? Can they do that, or will they become, because I've seen people do it in the face of true evil. Pastor Paul, they've said, no, I'll renounce everything. I have seen it from faithful people.
Yes.
They just give up so easily.
Some people will give up instantly, and others will die for their faith in Christ. Absolutely, we will. But,
and you know what, Pastor?
But if you're not sold out to Jesus, I'm talking about really rock bottom. I don't care. Stick a gun to my head. I've had that done. If you don't have Christ in your heart that strong, then you need to check yourself, because you're not going to get through these end times with a wishy-washy kind of halfway, I'm kind of saved, I think. That ain't going to cut it, is what you're saying. When the rubber meets the road,
it won't.
you got to know that you belong to the Father through Christ.
Yes, sir.
And because that evil's coming. The Bible told us that evil is coming. Jesus said they will even put you in prison and even be tried for 10 days, even unto death. If you'll be faithful, I'll give you a crown of life. So there is going to be people, it's already been happening, but it's going to happen more. I mean, we got to be sold out, right? Is that what you're saying, Mike? We got to be sold out?
Absolutely, Pastor. And you know what, Pastor Wolf? And here's a good test for it, right?
Okay.
Is there anything in existence right now for any of the audience that can give them a bad attitude? Because if it can, you're not sold out.
That's
if
good.
A small thing can change your attitude, then it has power over your life more than Christ.
Amen.